Andrew reportedly told disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein, "We're in this together," urging him to keep in touch.
In a stunning and unprecedented decision, two members of the royal family, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie of York, have been formally removed from royal duties, following what palace officials described as a breach of internal confidentiality and conduct unbecoming of royal representatives. The announcement, issued quietly through the royal press office at 6 a.m. London time, sent shockwaves across Britain. For the first time in decades, the monarchy has publicly confirmed the disciplinary expulsion of blood relatives, a move reportedly backed by both King Charles III and the Prince and Princess of Wales. Within hours, sources close to Kensington and Clarence House began piecing together the sequence of events that led to this extraordinary outcome. At the center of the storm stands Catherine, Princess of Wales, whose grace under pressure and quiet resilience during the ongoing health crisis of her daughter, Princess Charlotte, has made her the moral pillar of the modern monarchy. But behind the palace's marble facade, a sinister web of jealousy, misinformation, and betrayal had been tightening around her for months. The investigation began when a handwritten letter surfaced within palace correspondence archives, allegedly authored by Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh. The letter, phrased in delicate language, expressed concern about Catherine's emotional stability and her ability to manage her expanding public role while caring for an ailing child. At first glance, the handwriting appeared authentic. The phrasing matched Sophie's known style, measured, diplomatic, kind. Yet palace handwriting experts, alarmed by subtle inconsistencies in stroke pressure and letter spacing, flagged it as potentially counterfeit. What they discovered stunned even veteran courtiers. The forged document had been printed using stationery from Beatrice's private residence at St. James's Palace and sealed with a replica of the Duchess of Edinburgh's personal monogram, a stamp used only on internal communications. Tracing the letter's digital trail led investigators to Princess Eugenie's personal assistant, whose devices revealed drafts of the same document, written weeks before it was delivered. In short, a fabricated letter meant to discredit Catherine had been created inside the York circle. Insiders say tension between the York sisters and Catherine had been simmering for years, but reached breaking point after the succession transition planning began in earnest. As King Charles's health deteriorated and discussions about the future public role of the younger royals intensified, Beatrice and Eugenie reportedly requested partial reinstatement, as working royals arguing that their lineage, as daughters of Prince Andrew, gave them seniority. However, both William and Catherine opposed the proposal, emphasizing that a streamlined monarchy was essential to preserve the crown's integrity. The rejection, delivered privately by King Charles, and reinforced by Catherine's quiet but firm stance, infuriated the York sisters, who saw themselves being erased from the future of the firm. According to a longtime courtier, they believed Kate was the gatekeeper, the invisible hand keeping them out. The forged letter, sources allege, was intended to plant seeds of doubt about Catherine's ability to juggle motherhood and monarchy, particularly given the sensitive condition of Princess Charlotte, who has reportedly been undergoing treatment for a mild neurological condition. By framing Sophie as the concerned voice, the sisters hope to create division between Catherine and one of her closest allies within the royal family. The scheme might have remained hidden if not for a chance discovery by Lord Andrew Chatterley, a communications aide who noticed irregularities in palace document routing logs. When he traced a courier package sent from Beatrice's office to the internal postroom at Clarence House, he realized the delivery ID had been cloned from another dispatch, a signature method often used to avoid scrutiny. He reported the anomaly to Princess Anne, who quietly initiated a confidential inquiry through the royal private office. By the time evidence reached King Charles, the pattern was undeniable. Multiple attempts to circulate fabricated correspondence, selective leaks to sympathetic journalists, and a coordinated social media campaign questioning Catherine's mental fatigue. The revelation forced the monarch's hand. A Royal Council of Ethics, a rarely convened body of senior advisors and legal officers, was assembled inside the Green Drawing Room at Buckingham Palace late Sunday evening. Catherine herself attended, accompanied by William, maintaining calm dignity as the details unfolded. Witnesses said she spoke only once, when asked if she had any comment, only that forgiveness is stronger than vengeance, but deceit must never wear a crown. Her words reportedly silenced the room. At dawn, under the seal of the sovereign and the approval of the Privy Council, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie were formally relieved of all royal duties, stripped of security privileges, and barred from representing the crown in any official capacity. They retain their titles by birth, a concession personally requested by Catherine to spare the Queen's memory from further scandal. The statement issued hours later read simply, Their Royal Highnesses, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, will no longer perform official engagements on behalf of the crown. The decision reflects the high standards of integrity expected of all who serve the monarchy. Outside the palace gates, the air was thick with disbelief. Crowds gathered, clutching newspapers, murmuring questions. Why now? Why both? The answer, insiders say, lies in the final revelation yet to come. A discovery that not only exposed the forged letter, but also linked it to a wider campaign of manipulation involving external actors, possibly connected to overseas media networks sympathetic to former royal exiles. As Buckingham Palace braces for the fallout, one truth has become clear. Catherine's quiet strength has triumphed where scheming failed, and the monarchy, battered but intact, has drawn a new line between loyalty and treachery. The morning after the shocking royal decree, Buckingham Palace transformed from a symbol of serenity into the epicenter of one of the most secretive investigations in modern royal history. While the official statement to the public remained calm and concise, what unfolded behind the velvet curtains was a far more intricate web of discovery, betrayal, and quiet strategy, one that revealed just how deeply the York conspiracy had penetrated the royal communications network. At precisely 8:45 a.m., the king's private secretary delivered an order marked Confidential Monarch's Eyes, only to the Internal Security Division of the royal household. The instruction was unmistakable. Initiate a comprehensive audit of all internal communications, correspondence logs, and media liaisons linked to the offices of York and Edinburgh. King Charles, though weakened by his ongoing health treatments, remained resolute. Witnesses described him as visibly heartbroken yet unyielding. His words to the senior council were reportedly brief but chilling. "Let no loyalty cloud the truth. This institution must be purged of deceit before my son inherits it." The task force was composed of trusted figures: Sir Edward Rayburn, a retired intelligence advisor to the Crown, Lady Arabella Kent, Chief of Archival Security, and Colonel James Phelps, former MI5 liaison assigned to the Royal Protection Command. Their mission: trace the forged correspondence to its origin, verify all supporting communications, and identify who inside the York household knew of its creation. The first breakthrough came from an encrypted cloud server used by Princess Eugenie's personal aide, Charlotte Bellamy, a 28-year-old former public relations consultant. Through forensic analysis, investigators uncovered a series of deleted drafts, digital remnants of the same letter, forged in Sophie's handwriting. One early version bore the subject line, "A mother's concern for eyes of the Queen only." In one recovered email, Eugenie had written privately to her sister Beatrice, "If this lands right, it will make everyone question her readiness not to destroy her, but to make her step back a little." That message, though framed as harmless, exposed intent. It confirmed that both sisters had collaborated on the letter's circulation, intending to use it to sow subtle doubt about Catherine's composure, especially while the princess balanced her public role with caring for Princess Charlotte's recent neurological treatments, a topic that the palace had deliberately kept shielded from the press. Further investigation revealed that a copy of the forged letter had been scanned and sent to a confidential contact at the London Herald, an online news platform notorious for speculative royal coverage. Metadata analysis tied the upload to a device logged under the Clarence House guest Wi-Fi network on the same day Beatrice attended a philanthropy reception in London. Security camera review later confirmed that she had entered a private corridor reserved for senior aides, an area she was no longer authorized to access without prior clearance. Within hours of her visit, a junior reporter from the Herald began contacting freelance editors with an anonymous tip about a duchess voicing concerns about the Princess of Wales. Although the palace's media suppression team intercepted the leak before publication, the incident confirmed that the York sisters were directly linked to a smear operation. That evening, Prince William and Princess Catherine convened a closed meeting at Kensington Palace, attended by Princess Anne, Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, and two senior legal advisors. The atmosphere was heavy, but disciplined. Catherine, dressed simply in gray, remained silent through most of the discussion. Sophie, whose name had been forged, appeared shaken but composed. According to one source inside the meeting, when Sophie realized her own letterhead had been used to attack Catherine, she nearly broke down. Kate reached across the table, took her hand, and said, "They used you because you are kind. That's what makes them dangerous." Anne, ever direct, urged immediate disciplinary action, calling the sisters' actions an assault on the moral backbone of the monarchy. End of 4. But Catherine resisted vengeance. "If we act in anger, we prove them right," she said quietly. "Let the truth, not fury, be our answer." Her words reportedly convinced the council to pursue a discreet but exhaustive investigation rather than an immediate public confrontation. That same night, Catherine returned to Windsor to be with her children. A witness described her as visibly drained, yet resolute. In the nursery wing, she sat beside Charlotte's bed for nearly an hour, watching her sleep. A small photograph of Diana rested on the windowsill. To those close to her, it was a moment of reflection, a reminder of how history always tests the women who wear the crown. Meanwhile, across London, Beatrice and Eugenie remained unaware of the full extent of the palace investigation. They were seen dining privately at a Mayfair restaurant, accompanied by close friends, laughing and toasting, perhaps unaware that by dawn, the royal council's evidence would be complete. By sunrise, a confidential report 186 pages long was delivered to Buckingham under the title Operation Mirror: Findings of the Internal Review. Its conclusion was unambiguous. Both York princesses had participated in the creation and circulation of falsified royal correspondence. The act violated the Official Code of Royal Conduct, Section 4, Integrity of Representation. Their motives were rooted in personal resentment, following the rejection of their request to return to royal duties. King Charles, upon reading the summary, reportedly whispered only one sentence: "They chose envy over honor." The white drawing room of Buckingham Palace had never felt so heavy. Once a sanctuary for afternoon audiences and royal portraits, it now stood as the stage for a reckoning that would echo across generations. It was here that Princess Catherine, Princess Anne, Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, and senior royal advisors gathered alongside Beatrice and Eugenie of York, summoned for what would be their final appearance as members of the royal working circle. The sisters entered quietly, their faces pale beneath the grand chandeliers. Outside, the London rain struck against the palace windows like a drumbeat of judgment. Sir Edward Reyburn opened the proceedings with a calm but grave tone. The council had finished its inquiry, and the evidence was indisputable. Forged documents, falsified seals, and deliberate leaks of private royal material. A monitor flickered to life at the side of the room, displaying forensic comparisons between Sophie's authentic handwriting and the fabricated letter circulated from the York office. Gasps rippled through the room. The imitation was near perfect, down to the looping S and the faint diagonal slant of Sophie's signature, a mimicry made possible only by access to private archives, access granted exclusively to senior royals. Eugenie broke the silence first, her voice trembling. "It wasn't meant to harm her. We only wanted balance. We've been invisible for years." Catherine lifted her gaze, her expression calm but unyielding. "Balance is built with trust, not lies," she said softly. "You've broken both." Beatrice, defiant at first, faltered as images of her encrypted emails appeared on the screen, the message instructing a junior aide to ensure authenticity and retain Sophie's tone. The weight of exposure left no room for denial. King Charles, too ill to attend in person, had sent a written statement to be read aloud by Princess Anne. His words, though brief, struck like iron. "Royal blood demands royal conduct. My nieces have forsaken both." "Oh?" The statement concluded with an instruction that stunned even long-serving staff. Beatrice and Eugenie were to be formally suspended from all palace privileges, effective immediately. Security details, staff access, and communications channels were revoked before the session ended. Tears streamed down Eugenie's face. "We didn't want exile," she whispered. "We just wanted to be seen." Catherine looked at her not with anger, but with weary compassion. "The world sees everything, Eugenie. What they'll remember is what you choose to do when the crown turns its back." When the meeting adjourned, the sisters were escorted to a waiting car at the north entrance. No photographers were allowed, no farewell ceremony given. As the heavy palace doors closed behind them, Buckingham returned to silence, the kind that follows storms, not peace. Within the hour, internal memos were circulated confirming the expulsion, coded under Operation Silver Veil. Staff were instructed to remove the York office's crests and to seal their correspondence archives pending review. At Kensington Palace, William and Catherine stood by the window overlooking the wet gardens. William placed his hand on her shoulder. "You've shown more strength today than any of them ever expected." Catherine didn't smile. Her voice was low, almost distant. "Strength means nothing if we forget to forgive." And yet, deep down, she understood the monarchy had changed forever. The crown would survive, but the price of its survival would be trust lost among blood. Outside, the bells of Westminster tolled for evening prayers. Inside, history had just drawn a new boundary between duty and kinship, and Catherine, poised but scarred, stood alone at its edge. The expulsion of Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie sent tremors through every wing of Buckingham Palace, but nowhere did the silence cut deeper than at Windsor Castle, the royal family's spiritual heart and emotional anchor. Within those ancient walls, whispers replaced ceremony, and the courtiers who once spoke freely now lowered their voices when the Princess of Wales's name was mentioned. For decades, Windsor had symbolized the monarchy's endurance through storms. Yet now, it carried a strange new atmosphere, the stillness that follows an earthquake. In the days following the council's decision, Catherine withdrew from the public eye, focusing her time at Windsor with her children. Prince George returned to school under discreet security, while Princess Charlotte, still recovering from her ongoing neurological treatment, remained under the watchful care of specialists. Catherine divided her days between Charlotte's private therapy sessions at St. Mary's Wing, Windsor, and evening meetings with the King's Transition Committee, the team preparing for the eventual handover of duties to Prince William. Those close to her described her demeanor as measured, unwavering. One aide recalled finding her late one night in the castle's St. George's Hall, standing alone before a portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. She didn't cry. She simply said, "Every crown is heavier than it looks." Then she went back to work. But beneath her calm exterior, Catherine knew the storm wasn't over. The removal of Beatrice and Eugenie had created a vacuum, and nature, even in the palace, abhors a vacuum. Across town, the York family residence at Royal Lodge became a fortress of resentment. Prince Andrew, long stripped of his public role, reportedly reacted with fury to the treatment of his daughters. According to staff accounts, his raised voice echoed through the halls. "My daughters are not scapegoats for their ambition. They were born royal, no one can erase that." Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, tried to mediate, making discreet phone calls to senior courtiers. But no one answered. For the first time in decades, the York branch had been fully exiled from royal decision-making. Still, insiders revealed that Beatrice and Eugenie had not accepted their downfall quietly. A close friend leaked to a tabloid that the sisters were deeply hurt by the hypocrisy, insisting that Catherine's camp wanted to silence them because they knew too much. The statement fueled online speculation. Hashtags like #Yorkgate and #Palace Power Play trended for days. However, royal watchers quickly noted how those social media accounts were coordinated, many traced to the same overseas public relations firm that had once represented Sarah Ferguson's charity initiatives. The implication was clear. The Yorks had launched a covert PR counterattack. Princess Anne, ever the monarch's enforcer, saw the rising chaos as an existential threat. During a private meeting at Windsor, she confronted Andrew directly, a rare sibling encounter described by witnesses as chillingly formal. "This isn't about punishment," Anne told him. "It's about preservation. You may not care for the crown, but William will inherit it, and he will protect it as I have. You'd do well to remind your daughters of that." Andrew, red-faced and trembling, reportedly muttered that Catherine was manipulating the old guard. But Anne ended the conversation with an iron finality. "Catherine doesn't manipulate, she endures. That's what makes her dangerous to people who don't understand restraint." Her remark would later be repeated among palace aides as the defining line of this chapter, the moment when the House of Windsor itself chose sides. The British press, accustomed to palace leaks, suddenly found themselves locked out. Following the incident, Kensington Palace issued a directive to all royal correspondents. Until further notice, inquiries relating to the Princess of Wales or the York family will receive no comment. It was an unprecedented communications blackout, one that signaled the firm's shift into crisis management mode. Still, that silence only fueled public curiosity. Editorials in The Times and The Guardian began asking whether a new kind of monarchy was emerging, one led not by spectacle, but by strategy. The younger generation, particularly William and Catherine, were quietly building alliances with Princess Anne and Sophie, forming what insiders called the Steadfast Circle. Their mission: restore integrity, shield the monarchy from scandal, and prepare for the eventual abdication of King Charles, an event now whispered about as inevitable. Through it all, Catherine avoided public confrontation. Instead, she played the long game, working behind closed doors, maintaining dignity, and allowing time to expose her opponents. One senior aide put it plainly: "Catherine doesn't fight her enemies, she lets their noise destroy them." I'm 7. While Beatrice and Eugenie scrambled to salvage their image through interviews and charity initiatives, Catherine made quiet visits to children's hospitals, community shelters, and art schools, all without press notification. Yet photographs still surfaced, taken by locals and volunteers. In every image, she appeared radiant, a woman grounded not by scandal, but by service. And that, according to a palace insider, was precisely the point. When others sought attention, she sought meaning. The people saw it and they chose her. By the end of the week, public polls showed an unprecedented 83% approval rating for Catherine, while support for Beatrice and Eugenie collapsed into single digits. At Windsor, a golden light fell across the castle grounds as Catherine walked the corridors with Princess Charlotte by her side. Outside, the press clamored for headlines, but inside, she remained untouched by the chaos she had outlasted. She knew what few others did, that the true battle was no longer about titles or privilege. It was about who the public would follow when the next crown fell. And without saying a word, Catherine had already won. Barely a week after the York sisters' dismissal, a new tremor rattled Buckingham Palace, one that threatened to undo the fragile calm Catherine had restored. The storm began quietly, with a message intercepted by the Royal Cybersecurity Bureau, an email sent from a foreign media outlet to an encrypted address previously linked to Princess Beatrice's communications aide. Attached was a draft article titled, "The Secret Divide Inside the House of Windsor, What Catherine Hides." Its content was explosive. It alleged that Princess Catherine's public grace masked a private struggle, referencing unverified medical reports about Princess Charlotte's ongoing condition and implying that Catherine's emotional health was deteriorating under the burden of succession. The source of these claims? Anonymous insiders, which palace investigators quickly traced back to a familiar contact, Princess Eugenie. The discovery forced the palace to reopen its investigation. Eugenie had reportedly maintained covert communications with an international journalist, posing as an advocate for transparency within the monarchy. Over several weeks, she had shared private anecdotes and selective details about Catherine's schedule, including the times she visited Charlotte's therapy appointments and the nature of her hospital security arrangements. Though none of the leaked details were state secrets, they were deeply personal, a betrayal that struck Catherine at her core. The timing was deliberate. The article was set to publish during William's high-profile diplomatic visit to Canada, the first symbolic step toward preparing for his future reign. Any scandal involving Catherine at that moment could have jeopardized years of careful transition planning. Luckily, the article never saw daylight. The Royal Communications Office, working with British intelligence, quietly negotiated with the publisher to suppress it, citing privacy and defamation law. But the damage was done. Within the palace, whispers spread. Eugenie had not acted alone. Further inquiries uncovered encrypted financial transfers between a London consultancy tied to Andrew Parker Bowles, Camilla's former husband, and a PR agent connected to Eugenie's friend network. The implication was that Andrew and Camilla, though publicly estranged from the scandal, had a hand in orchestrating the campaign, possibly as retaliation for their own declining influence amid Charles's illness and the Yorks' expulsion. An internal memo summarized it bluntly. The destabilization attempt appears designed not to ruin the monarchy, but to fracture the next generation before succession is finalized. Princess Anne, upon reviewing the report, reportedly told her aides, "They've turned rumor into a weapon and Catherine into the target." When briefed about the renewed betrayal, Catherine refused to issue a public statement. Instead, she visited Addenbrooke's Hospital for a children's charity event, her smile radiant, her composure unshaken. Cameras captured her kneeling beside a young patient who handed her a crayon drawing of a crown. Catherine's only words were, "The strongest crowns are invisible." It was subtle, but the nation understood. She had chosen grace over retaliation again. Behind the scenes, however, William acted. He ordered the immediate suspension of all York-linked staff from royal correspondence systems and authorized Anne to oversee all internal press communications until further notice. When the first leaks of the attempted smear became public through unofficial channels, the British public rallied around Catherine. Editorials praised her dignity under fire. Social media exploded with the hashtag #StandWithCatherine, while news anchors called her the calm heart of a storm-tossed monarchy. Even longtime critics admitted the truth. The Princess of Wales had endured an unprecedented campaign of deception and emerged unbroken. As one royal historian told The Telegraph, "In a century defined by scandal, she's rewritten the playbook. Silence, not spectacle, has become her sword." But the shadows had not fully lifted. For behind the walls of Clarence House, Camilla remained strangely quiet, neither defending the York sisters nor denying her rumored role in the failed smear. And in that silence, the palace began to wonder. Had the Queen Consort truly stepped aside, or was she simply waiting for her next move? When the dust seemed to have settled, and the York scandal faded into the archives of palace history, a new tremor began, not loud, but calculated. Queen Camilla, long silent amid the chaos, re-emerged into the royal spotlight with unsettling precision. Her public demeanor was flawless, composed smiles, gentle words, carefully chosen appearances beside King Charles. Yet beneath that poised exterior, she had been orchestrating her final play, a move that could either cement her legacy or shatter the fragile peace within the monarchy. Without any prior notice to Buckingham's press team, Camilla agreed to an exclusive personal reflection interview with the London Chronicle, a paper historically sympathetic to her circle. What began as a discussion about aging gracefully in public life quickly took a darker turn. Midway through the conversation, the Queen Consort's tone shifted. Her voice softened, but every word struck like a dagger. Every generation has its shadow. For Charles, it was Diana. For William, perhaps it's someone else, someone from his past, who still understands him more than the world does. The interviewer hesitated. Camilla continued. History repeats itself, doesn't it? Every man has a Camilla, a love the world was never meant to understand. The headline exploded within hours. Camilla hints at William's secret past. The people see Diana's ghost return. Social media erupted. Speculation reignited about Rose Farquhar, William's university sweetheart, with tabloids drawing cruel parallels between the two triangles. Charles, Diana, Camilla then, William, Catherine, and Rose now. Inside Buckingham, the reaction was immediate. William, furious yet controlled, demanded a crisis meeting. The communications director labeled the Queen Consort's comments as emotionally manipulative and historically reckless. But Catherine's response was again unexpected. "Let her talk," she told her team. "Every echo of the past makes the present stronger. The people will see who still chases ghosts." And she was right. Polls taken within 48 hours showed public sympathy surging toward Catherine. The narrative flipped. Camilla's words were seen not as revelation, but as resentment disguised as reflection. For the first time, commentators openly questioned the Queen Consort's judgment, some even calling her the monarchy's relic from an era of scandal. When the king learned of the interview, his response was slow but resolute. Amid ongoing health treatments, he summoned Camilla to a private audience at Clarence House. The conversation lasted less than 10 minutes. Though no statement was released, insiders confirmed the outcome. Camilla's future royal engagements were quietly suspended, and she was instructed to withdraw from media appearances indefinitely. To protect the institution, the Royal Council agreed to frame it as a period of rest and reflection. Behind closed doors, it was understood as a soft exile, the end of her political influence within the crown. Weeks later, during a subdued ceremony at Windsor, Catherine appeared beside Charles and William to inaugurate a new children's research center named the Diana Trust for Hope. As cameras flashed, her eyes met the king's. He smiled faintly, proud and weary. Catherine placed her hand over her heart, a gesture of loyalty, forgiveness, and final closure. In that moment, the message was clear. The new era had begun. Camilla's era of manipulation had ended not with scandal, but with silence. And from that silence, Catherine, calm, steadfast, and unbroken, stood as the future queen the people already believed in.